Doesn't really need an introduction because he's never off the TV. It's Michael Fenton Stevens. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Bobby. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. It's just great to have you on here because I've had so many great guests. Honestly, like yourself, I've got this podcast on and the guests I've had on it have just been sensational. And
Mm.
you're part, I don't know if you've looked at any of my guests. I've had like
Yeah,
Casey.
yeah.
I've had some really, really cracking people on here. But just having you on is just fantastic. It's absolutely
Well,
fantastic.
let's not prejudge it.
Okay, Doc. Okay, Doc. Right, we'll just kind of go into we'll crack on to the first question here. What actually made you want to be an actor, Michael?
I think probably my dad, actually, Bobby. My dad was a solicitor, although he didn't really want to be. What he wanted to be was I think, an actor, but actually an entertainer. Maybe I think that's what you'd say,
Yeah.
because he grew up in an era when that was the thing you would aim to be. I think during the war, he tried to join ENSA, which was the entertainment services department, as it were, and to get into ENSA, you had to be no good at anything else. I think basically, so they wouldn't let him in because he was already trained as a dental assistant. So he worked during the war in the dental corps,
Mhm.
which is, you talk about brave soldiers, but unbelievable. Some of the places he went into, incredible. He's been into everybody's mouth.
Mhm.
He was a very brave man. Yeah. He never saw any service at all, really. He basically spends his entire time way behind the line, which is why he chose the dental service, I think, to avoid ever having to hold a gun. And, but he did want to be an entertainer, and he liked entertaining. He was a good singer, and he was a good comedian. And that's what he tried to do. When he came out of the army, he tried he auditioned for the Windmill Club, which is quite a good subject at the moment, on the day that the dear Barry Cryer has passed away.
Yeah.
That was his first job in the profession.
Mhm.
And my dad didn't pass the audition, sadly.
Mhm.
But he auditioned for a number of other things. And over the years, he did work as a stand-up comedian. And then, of course, his family came along. And so he stopped doing it because, you need to pay the bills. But he always wanted to. So he carried on for many years. He formed his own little troupe of performers, and they would perform in an amateur way. They would do old-time musicals and entertain people in church halls and old people's homes and hospitals. And he devoted an enormous amount of his time to it. So as I grew up, I always saw my dad on the stage. Every weekend, he would be performing somewhere.
Mhm.
And he was really good, my dad. He was a very funny performer and people loved him. So he was very popular.
Fantastic. How
And
did it?
I sort of thought, well, this is, that's what people do. And then, I had two brothers, both of whom weren't, one was, I think, maybe too young at the time, but my older brother wasn't particularly interested in it, but I always was, and I could sing. So my dad started roping me in when I was quite young. And I caught the bug from him, I think.
Fantastic. So, how
Mm.
did it feel for you, like being like a young boy, seeing your dad up on the stage? Did you think I'm wanting to do that, or?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I thought it was a brilliant thing that he was doing because, I saw the reaction of the crowd.
Mhm.
They were rolling with laughter. My dad was always the center of every party. He was that sort of man. He was the life and soul of every party. And if you ever got a gathering, we used to go on holiday to holiday camps when I was a kid. And my memory of holiday camps is quite often in the morning they would have something organized. There'd be football or some sort of games thing going on or something by the pool. And then you'd have lunch. And then in the afternoons, people sort of entertained themselves until the evening when entertainment was provided again.
Mhm.
My dad used to go on holiday to a holiday camp, basically with almost an empty suitcase as far as clothes were concerned. He used to take his props and his costumes with him, and makeup and wigs and beards and everything ready for everything that was going to happen that week. We never went on holiday without him being voted king of the week or whatever. And I remember, actually, as I got older, I realized that some entertainers used to go, "Oh, bloody hell, that's that bloke again." But a number of them would go, "Oh, great, Harry, fantastic, glad you're here." Okay, and it meant they almost had a week off because he would be in every competition and he was great fun. He was really brilliant, brilliantly funny, my dad. And And in the afternoons, I just have this picture of him sitting in amongst a crowd. I don't even know what holiday camps were, just rows of chalets, and in between them with these grass areas, and people would sit outside their chalet. Well, they didn't when my dad was around. People would gather around him. And I remember him sort of standing up and talking and making people laugh. 50, 60 people had all brought their deck chairs in and gathered round. And he would keep it up for hours. And then he'd start a sing-song, get everybody going, and he'd be singing. And it was just, he was amazing. So, I never thought that I would be able to, I never saw myself as ever being able to match him. Mm-hmm. But he said to me, no, look, you've got a good singing voice. Come on and sing. And he first encouraged me to do comedy. The first comedy I ever did was with him, where he would do a routine. He'd say, I'll sing this song, and then I'll do these jokes, and then I'll sing this other song. And as I'm coming to the end, come on stage and start pulling on my coat. And he said, and I'll go, get off, I'm performing, get off. And I say, but I wanted to sing a song. And he'd say, no, they don't want to see you. They want to see me. They've come to see me. And so I would go, oh, but come on, Dad, let me sing. And he said, no, go on, get off the stage. And of course, the audience would go, you go, no, don't him. He's a pain in the, no, you don't want to hear him sing. And of course, then they say, yes, we do, So he'd say, anyway, what brought you out here in the first place? I say, well, I said, it was a joke I had to do, which was, have you seen, I said, I came out because there's that bloke over there. I said to him, excuse me, sir, have you seen what your son's doing in the swimming pool? And my dad said, don't say things like that. He said, every little boy does that in the swimming pool. I said, yeah, but not off the top diving board. That was the joke. That was my gag, my first joke. And so he used to get a big laugh. He'd say, oh, sing a song. And then, so we worked out a little routine. And I would then sing some sort of sweet voice, soprano song. And the audience loved me. And of course, I fell in love with an audience loving me, which is, the ego of an actor, really, I suppose.
Fantastic. And, just as you described your dad, like during the war and obviously like at a holiday camp, there were shades of It Ain't Half Hot, Mum, and shades of the Heidi Hi there,
Absolutely, yeah. That's what it was like. That sitcom is very accurate for that world, And I remember it well as a young boy going to those holiday camps. That's sort of what it was like, and it was hard work. I've spoken to people on my podcast who came from that world. I've got Joe Pasquale on in a couple of weeks' time, and that's how he started, and going right back to Freddie Parrotface Davis, the old stand-up comedian. They started in at the holiday camps. You'd get a job as a red coat or a yellow coat, and it was a great training ground.
Yeah. What holiday camp was it, Michael? Was it Butlins?
No, we hardly ever went to Butlins. We used to go to either Warner holiday camps, where people wore green jackets, or we'd go to Pontins, where people wore yellow jackets, and Butlins wore red jackets. They were red coats. Yeah. So the famous red coats, they're Butlins entertainers. Butlins, I suppose, was the biggest, and if you were a Butlins entertainer, that was it. But Shane Ritchie was a Pontins. He worked at Pontins holiday camp. It was a great training ground. Yeah.
You hear a lot of people talking about people that have did comedy and stuff, and obviously it must be in the blood, I think, or in the DNA for someone to be funny. And obviously, I mean, you're talking about your dad there, and then obviously I think you've got the same gene because everything that you've been on, you appeared in like comedy shows over the years.
Lots of comedy shows. Yeah.
And it's like, everyone.
I sort of fell into that though, Bobby. I fell into that when I started acting. In a way, my introduction to acting was I went to university. I think I would have liked to have gone and been a holiday camp entertainer. I think I would have liked to have gone in through that route. Yeah. And in a way, that's where my soul is. But I went off and I did well at school, so I went off to university and I was doing a degree. And I fell in with a lot of people. We did very serious plays, and I was doing Shakespeare, and I could see this as a future. I thought to myself, I'm going to be a very straight actor. I'm going to be a proper, serious actor. I'm going to join the Royal Shakespeare Company. I'm going to, in fact, I fell in love with the idea of acting, because in a way, up until that point, I thought I would be an entertainer. I thought I would be a singer and a gagster. But I fell in love with the idea of actually really being a proper actor. when I went with some mates of mine from school. We went on a barge up the River Avon, and we moored just opposite the Royal Shakespeare Company. And of course, my mates all went, right, pub. And I went, oh, we should go and see the theatre, shouldn't we? We should go and look at, I mean, that's the Royal Shakespeare Company. And they went, I hate Shakespeare. But they went to the pub and I went to the theatre. And I saw Ian McKellen play Romeo. That's a long time ago, as you can imagine. And, you know, I saw that performance, him and an actress called Francesca Annis, who was the most beautiful actress. It was a really spellbinding production. And it just opened my eyes to the idea of what you could do with a play, how it could affect you. I stood at the back, cost a £5. They used to let you stand at the back for a £5. So I stood at the back for a £5. I came out, and then I went back in and watched it again. And, you know, that's that's 3 hours. I watched the play, and I went back and watched it again that night.
Fantastic.
So I watched it twice, and I was absolutely entranced. I fell in love with the whole idea. I couldn't think. Suddenly, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be them. I wanted to be on that stage, and I wanted to be doing that sort of acting. I had no idea how I was going to go about it. And in fact, I didn't really make any effort to do it. I didn't go to drama school. I didn't apply for drama school. But I knew in my head that's what I wanted to be. And then when I had the opportunity to go to university, I went to Oxford Polytechnic, as it was in those days, and it's now Brookes University. But I went there deliberately because I knew that it was affiliated in a way with the university. And the university had all these different colleges, and at every single college was a different drama group. And I thought, well, I can go down there and I can join these things. I can do loads of plays, and maybe I'll learn to do it that way. And that's what I did. The moment I got there, I went down, auditioned at the university. I did 33 productions in the time I was at university.
Fantastic. 33
full productions of plays in 3 years. So, yeah. And I did a degree. Luckily, I had a very nice tutor who said, you don't want to do this. You know, I studied law. And very quickly, I think about halfway through my second year, my first year I was quite well behaved. Halfway through the second year, he knew I was a loser. He said, you don't really want to be a lawyer, do you? I said, no. He said, you want to be an actor, don't you? He said, why don't you go to drama school? I said, because I can't afford the fees. He said, well, you seem to be doing all right here. He said, so as long as you get your essays in, I'll leave you alone. And that's a very kind thing to do, because he recognized that in a way I was using university to get to where I wanted to be, which I think is what university is about. Yeah. You know, I think that's what further education should be.
Yeah. And it's like
teaching you what you want to do as an adult.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, you've utilized your education from then as well. I mean, it's like,
well, I learned to speak posh. That's one of the things I did. You know, I mean, if you're going to mix with people from Oxford, you might as well, at Oxford University, you might as well copy them, which is exactly what I did. So instead of going for elocution lessons and at a drama school and learning to speak that way, I just listened to these people and just started to copy them. Because my family are from southeast London. They're working class. Most of them were dockers. My father was a docker, but he went to night school and trained himself out of it. So, you know, I didn't come from a posh background, but I've utilized the ability to copy people.
Joe, I know something, Michael. My dad, he was a docker for nearly 50 years.
Yeah. No, so my granddad was. All my uncles were dockers. They all, of course, you know, in the mid 60s, they were all made unemployed, sadly, down in the docks closed in southeast London. Yeah. So they all went off and did other jobs, and most of them went off and well, one went off and became a crook, which is quite interesting. We didn't know about it. My cousin told us at his funeral. He said my dad was the best crook in London. He said he made his living after he left the docks. He made his living from thieving. And we all went, what? And he was a bloody good thief because he never got caught.
Brilliant.
That's amazing, isn't it?
That's absolutely fantastic. It's funny because my dad, he was a docker in a little port in Edinburgh called Leith.
Leith, yeah.
And he was a docker. When he started there was like something like 3,000 workers there. And it was like
amazing,
it was a thriving port. But then he got made redundant way back, and I think it was 1990. And
Yeah.
back then, I think when he left, there was something like maybe, I don't know, about maybe 15 of them left or something, 15 or 20 of them left. So
Yeah.
there's a big
Well, it's all
depletion of the
great big
workforce.
cranes and container ships now, isn't it? It's very
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah.
Yes. One of my guests on my podcast, a man called Jimmy Mulville, who runs a television company called Hat Trick Productions. They make Have I Got News for You and loads of other television
Yeah,
programs.
did they
He
not?
owns that.
They done Father Ted as well, did they not?
Father Ted,
Father
an
Ted.
enormous number of things they've done over the
Hmm.
years. He owns it anyway,
Hmm.
and he was the first producer he was the man who gave me my first professional job. Strangely enough, we were at the Edinburgh Festival. I went to the Edinburgh. This is why I ended up in comedy. Really, I went to the Edinburgh Festival doing serious plays
Hmm.
with college, and also did the review in the evening. And in my review was Angus Deaton and a fellow called Philip Pope and
Hmm.
a number of other people, and we did a parody of the Bee Gees, which people came and signed us up immediately to
Hmm.
do it as a record, which was brilliant. We got offered a radio series on Radio 4.
Fantastic.
And I said, well, I don't know how to do these things. And Jimmy said, come down to London and I'll put you in something at the Paris studios, which is where all the radio stuff, all the great radio stuff used to be recorded.
Hmm.
And he put me in the Frankie Howard show.
Oh,
So my very first job was working with Frankie Howard. And
fantastic.
halfway through the show, well, you say that, halfway through the show, Frankie Howard sacked me.
Really?
Yeah. So I was sacked from my very first job. I nicked his gag. I never do that to a top professional. Never. He was old school, Frankie Howard. He used to do a thing that to get a laugh, he would do this thing where he'd do a funny little movement. And he said, if I need a laugh at this point, because it's radio, I can do anything, so I'll do this. And they all laughed. And then whenever he needed a laugh in the show, he would do this funny movement. And I did a line, and it got a sort of a laugh, and I did his funny movement. And he got a big laugh and a round of applause. And he stopped the show and said to Jimmy, who was producing it, get rid of him. And I was sacked.
Really? Gee
Yeah,
whiz.
it's a tough business.
Wow.
I know.
Right,
I got on the bus, went back to college.
I was going to ask you as well. I mean, I noticed obviously you did a lot of work through the years. Some of you mentioned Angus Deaton there, but you worked with Kate and Ted Robbins a few times as well, haven't you?
I did. Lovely, Kate and Ted, yeah. In fact, I was very lucky. I went up to Granada Television to do a children's television series with in it was an actor called Paul Bradley, who eventually became Nigel in EastEnders and the doctor, the old heart surgeon in Holby City for many years.
He's a great
lovely
actor.
man.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great actor. He's a really lovely, lovely man as well. He's done extraordinary things because he was sent to Rwanda after the terrible things that happened there. He was sent there by Comic Relief, and he's been involved with those people ever since. He's an amazing man.
Fantastic.
Anyway, we did this children's television thing together, which was very good fun. It's called Stop That Laughing at the Back, and it was quite inventive for the time. And we played all the characters in it, and the producer of a show, they were going to do a show with Kate and Ted, and the producer of it was watching it. In Granada Television, you could watch anything being recorded in any other studio. Mm-hmm. So in a sort of downtime, he watched this thing and watched me performing, and then he got in touch and said, "Do you want to be in this show with these other people doing this new show for Saturday night?" Mm-hmm. And this is Saturday night ITV mainstream, the main channel, 6:30 on a Saturday night. That's a big show, isn't it? That's Ant and Dec territory. That's what that is, And Kate, and it was called the Kate and Ted Show, and then it became the Kate Robbins Show because they realised in a way that Kate was much easier to sell than Big Fat Ted, who is just the most amazing comic brain. Ted Robbins, he's absolutely brilliant. He's for many years he's been the best warm-up man in the business. He's incredible. He was. I once did a show where I was doing the voiceover for it with Simon Mayo, and halfway through, it was a quiz show, and halfway through it, the desk went down, which is the thing that they mix everything and they record it all through the desk and what have you. The desk went down, as they say. So in other words, it broke. And in order to carry on, they had to bring another desk from another studio, and they said, "How long do you think that'll take?" And this is a studio audience. Studio's full of people waiting for this thing to go on. And they said it'd take us about an hour. So they turned to Ted Robbins and said, "Ted, we need you to fill while we change the desk. And he said, okay, how long do you need me to do? And they said, about an hour. He went white. I'm not surprised. But he bloody did it. It was absolutely amazing. And by the end of it, everybody, the crew, the audience, everybody stood there and gave him an enormous standing ovation. It was one of the most, because just no preparation. Bang, he did an hour of amazing entertainment. He's incredible.
Fantastic.
Lovely man. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what's really, really
Kate is brilliant. Have you seen Afterlife, the series of Afterlife? Kate Robbins is in that, and she's absolutely brilliant in it.
You know what? I've actually haven't, and I really want to see it. But, you know, and it's like, yes. I mean, I've been listening to people talking about it, and they say it's fantastic. But I will get to start watching it because, I mean, Ricky Gervais I love watching Ricky Gervais stuff, and that's really good. Yeah. But going back to what you were saying about Ted there, like when he was kind of like chatting to the audience and stuff, it was like I was in a show years ago. I was on one episode of a show called Life of Riley with Caroline Quentin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was on, like, the scene I was on. I was like a builder that came on it, and she was going nuts at Arma and saying, had to remove a bath and stuff, and she was going crazy at me and stuff. And like a character that was, you know. Yeah. So before I actually performed the actual scene, they had it was like a Scottish comedian woman who was trying to warm up, because it was like a live audience, and she was trying to warm up the audience. And I mean, she was really good, but the audience, I don't know, they just kind of didn't really get to her humour, I don't think. So the producer had a word with Caroline, and Caroline was lovely with me. She was honestly such a lovely lady. She went up to the audience and she was telling them stories and stuff, and honestly, they were in raptures. It was unbelievable. They thought she was hilarious. And this was actually before they'd done the scene. And
yes,
it was, honestly, it was wonderful. It was great to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it is brilliant. The best performers, particularly if you're used to doing live performance in front of an audience, studio audience, you would always help the warm-up person out. You don't, it's very unusual to turn up at those things and not have an involvement with the audience, because in a way they're seeing something special. I mean, the person I think of as being brilliant at that, because he just couldn't resist it. And of course he couldn't, was David Jason, who was astonishing with an audience, and he messed about, and he would make the audience laugh all the way through, because there's a lot of hiatuses when you're filming those things, and it can get rather a long evening, and the audience can get bored, so he would just keep it going the whole time, playing pranks and telling jokes, and he was amazing.
You know what? Just as you mentioned David Jason, I was actually going to come to that question about Only Fools and Horses, when you played the Ray Palin and in the Groovy Gang. I mean, that must have been fun. I mean, that was in front of a live audience, wasn't it? Like when you were.
It was, yeah, most of it. Although the challenge I would ask people, if you ever watch it, is try and guess which scenes weren't in front of a live audience. And from the level of performance, and particularly David and Nick, you'd never know which ones where there was an audience and when there wasn't one there. I mean, there's a great big scene in the airport. And of course, if you're going to put a set that large in front of an audience, where are you going to put the other sets? So in fact, it's a very long scene, and it's got lots of people in it, and it's quite complicated. All done without an audience. You'd never know. You'd never recognize that it was done without an audience.
And do you know what? One of the funniest bits in it is when you're like checking out Rodney's passport, and then you like turn around and you're like that. See that? That is brilliant.
I know. Oh, that was very much directed by David. He said, he did say to me, you know how to do this, don't you? And I said, yeah, I think so. He said, it's very important. He said, if you're going to do this gag, you have to turn around and look at his chest. I said, no, I know, David. I said, I'm expecting a boy. I'm expecting a child. He said, that's right. You've got to be looking at me, because I'm only short. He says, you look at me, and then you turn, expecting to see someone about the same height, and you look at his chest, and then you go up. He said, and it's exactly what happens, of course, But it's very devised, but you just try and make it look as if it's natural.
Absolutely fantastic. It's just so.
Yeah, no, honestly, he was brilliant. He's a great man, David Jason. He really is extraordinary. And it was a lovely thing talking about that, to come full circle with that, is that the podcast I do, I spoke to David. I've interviewed him for the podcast, and at the very end of it, I was able to give him a badge to become a member of the Groovy Gang, which I'd been hanging on to. I've been hanging on to this badge for 30 years. And I said, look, I've got this present for you. I'm going to make you a member of the Groovy Gang. And he was, I was surprised actually, but he was very touched, and he genuinely was moved by it, which was lovely. Lovely to be able to do that. Yeah.
Lovely. Seems like a lovely man as well, doesn't
he? He is. I mean, he's not a lovely man if you can't do it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, quite often the best performers, if somebody is not doing it right or is not up to it, they can be quite tough. They can say, no, not like that. Like this. They know the right way to do it. And one of the reasons they've got to the top is because they insist on it being done right. So if you know what you're doing and you can perform, they love you. That's what they want. And understandably, I think they're right. They're absolutely right.
Fantastic. No, I mean, now going kind of back to one of the questions I was going to ask you, you did spit an image. I didn't know that.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
because we did this, we'd done this sort of parody group. I was in this group where we used to do parodies of different rock bands, and so they needed music on Spitting Image, and of course, it was quite the way to do. Some of the songs were parodies, but some of them were just comedy songs. And they brought us in really to, because we'd done a lot. They said, come in and work on it. And so I sang on quite a number of loads and loads of Spitting Image songs. In fact, I've got a gold disc. There we are.
So I mean, I could just still hear the chicken song in my head right now.
That's me. That's me singing it.
Absolutely.
I know. Yes, well, it's one of those strange coincidences, or it's just serendipity, really. I turned up and Philip Pope, who I was in this parody group with, he said, we need somebody who's, Mike is sort of a black lace. So it's not a great singer. And it's just, from Manchester. You do it. And I went, okay. I said, well, how's the tune go? And he said, it goes, and I went, oh, yeah, okay, I got it. And then hold the lyrics like that and just sing it. And he said, great, okay, we do it again. And then actually Kate Robbins is on that song as well. She's one of the singers on it, yeah. So Kate then came in and joined. If you the first woman voice that comes in, that's Kate. And then we all sang it, and but I sang the lead. It's really weird to have had a number one hit.
So what characters did you voice on it?
We basically did the music. I mean, just every now and again we would do a character. I had. I have stepped in when somebody's not there, but they had a very specific group of people who did the voices. Chris Barry and Steve Coogan quite a lot. Harry Enfield, they did a lot of the voices. So it was and Stephen Allen.
Stephen Allen, that's the guy who played Margaret Thatcher, wasn't it?
Absolutely, but he did lots of other characters as well. You wouldn't. I mean, I think eventually he played John Major as well, which is ironic, isn't it?
More please, it says more peas, please, Norma.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That was one of the rituals on a Sunday night for us. Yeah, well, sorry, not here, but when I was a young boy at my mum's, where she'd come back from the bingo, she'd be at the chip shop and would sit down having our chips, watching Spitting Image.
Well, it's an extraordinary program because I mean, I can't, at the time, it was hard hitting. It was quite, it was hard hitting. There's a song at the end of one of the series, which is Sting singing "I'll Be Watching You." Every breath you take. Then it finishes with Margaret Thatcher turning around and having red eyes. "I'll be watching you." and we were in the studio and we knew they decided they were going to do it, and they said, you've got to get the track to us because we're going to film it quickly this afternoon and it'll go in the show. So we said, okay. And Philip Pope, who does an amazing impersonation of Sting, was ready to sing it. And they got a phone call saying Sting has been in touch because they had to get permission from Sting to do it because they were going to change, I think, one of the lyrics. So that you had to get permission from the writer. So they'd been in touch, said, we want to do this. These are the lyrics. are you happy with that? And he got back and said, yeah, not only am I happy with it, I'll sing it. So amazingly, he was in Paris, it turns out, and he went to a recording studio in Paris, and they biked. I think somebody, they had a copy of the original sort of 32 track thing there.
Mhm.
I think that's where he'd recorded it originally. So they had it in the archive. They brought it out, and to the original backing, he re-sang the lyrics, which is amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely fantastic. You know,
Mm.
you know, you'd kind of expect Sting to do something like that because he seems like a cool guy and seems.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. We did. Yes. Well, I've had a few occasions where I bumped into Sting in my life, and he is a really cool guy. There's no doubt about it. He was and gobsmackingly beautiful. There's no doubt about it. As a red-blooded male, I will tell you, he's one of the most beautiful men I've ever seen. He's astonishing, and I can tell you the occasion that I know that where that happened is that I'd met him once or twice before. I did a thing with Godley and Cream, who used to be in 10cc,
Mhm.
and and they became directors of pop videos and stuff, and I did a thing for them, which was for American television, where we were in a spoof nightclub, supposedly in
Mhm.
London, and me and a number of other people played all these different characters in the club, and they would bring in people, and we would do sketches with them. One of whom was Meatloaf, who we've lost recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, Meatloaf. Meatloaf at one point said, he said, "Oh, wow, I got a great idea. Hey, look, I should wear this great big, like shit, fucking great big thing, like a big 10-gallon hat. It'd just be amazing." And everybody went, "Yeah, okay." He said, "Yeah, wow." And everybody went, and Miles Copeland, who was the manager of the police and the brother of Stuart Copeland, from the back of the hall, who was producing the thing, at the back, he went, "Okay, don't worry, I'll get it." And we went, "Okay, thanks, Miles." We didn't really know why we were getting this thing, but Meatloaf wanted it, so it was going to be got. And the next day, Miles Copeland turned up with a great big box, and in it was this amazing 10-gallon hat. And Meatloaf said to him, "Wow, man, that's amazing. That's just unbelievable. Where'd you get this from? Where'd you get it from, man? Where'd you get it?" And he said, "Dallas." He went, "What, you had it from?" He said, "No, I got it from Dallas." He'd been to Dallas.
Mhm.
He'd been to Dallas on Concorde.
Oh, gee whiz.
From one day to the next, he travelled to Dallas and bought a 10-gallon hat and brought it back. And then that sketch was cut.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. The crazy world of rock and roll. Just you see things like you think, so I'm not in this world. What a crazy, crazy world. It was fantastic fun. Godley and Cream were off their heads most of the time. They were brilliant fun, but yes. And then we also that was the first time I think I met Sting, because we were standing there and he said, "We're going to do a oh no, hang on a minute. Oh no, we've got a band coming in. We're going to record the band, and then we'll cut in the audience stuff later. But we need to record them, get some shots of it." And we went, "Okay." He said, "So you go and have an early lunch if you want to. Come back in a couple of hours, we'll be done. Or you can stay and watch." And we went, "Oh, okay, who is it?" And at that moment, in walked the police. with just ridiculous, with their guitars, and they got on this little stage, and Stuart Copeland started boom, boom, and Sting going boom, 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 1 2 1 2 1 2. Okay, right. And Sting said, "Okay." He said, "What would you like?" And no, I can't do a Geordie accent. He said, "What would you like?" He said, what do you want us to play?" And there was a sort of silence, and I went, "So Lonely?" And he went, "Yeah, sure. 2 3 4, so lonely." I was doing requests.
Brilliant.
We sat at this little table and watched while they did "So Lonely," "Message in a Bottle," Roxanne, "Walking on the Moon," and one other. I can't remember what the other one was, but it was absolutely incredible.
You know what? It just seems, for you at that time, it must have seemed really surreal. It was
bizarre. It all happened very quickly. and all sorts of things were happening. I was doing all, to the point where you sort of think, well, this is my life now. This will just go on. And actually, strangely enough, it bloody well has. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe every time I find myself in a situation where I'm with these people, or I walk into a room and think, yep, there we go. It's still going on. I find it really weird. Fantastic. And my podcast, the same thing. I'm talking to people like you do. Suddenly you're in front of these people. And you think to yourself, wow, just today, Cheryl Baker. Who wouldn't want to talk to Cheryl Baker? Bloody brilliant.
Absolutely.
Bloody brilliant.
You know what? And it's, especially for myself, listening to like all the stories I've had since I've started this, including what you've told me just now. To me, it's fascinating. It's just fantastic just listening to all these stories. Are amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, the second time I saw Sting, he was topless. So I can absolutely assure you how gorgeous he is. And I think he's probably no different now. But we walked into a dressing room, and that was Tiswas. We went to do Tiswas. And they said, which was just a fantastic show. We'd driven down from Stirling, to Stirling to Birmingham. Oh, wow. We did a show we were doing a show in Stirling. We did a show in Stirling, and then after the show finished, we got into a camper van and drove down to Birmingham overnight. Arrived in Birmingham about 5 a.m. Had egg and bacon in a greasy spoon, and went in to do Tiswas. We were met at the reception by this bloke who said, "Oh, great, come through. I'm sorry, we're really busy. You're going to have to share a dressing room." And we went, "That's all right, I don't mind." And we went in, and we were sharing a dressing room with Sting.
Brilliant.
And as I went in, he was at the sink, shaving, topless. And I, look, I am a red-blooded male, but I will never forget that image. Never. It's imprinted on my brain. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. What a gorgeous man.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. I'm sure like a lot of men and women will agree to that as well, because over the years I've heard to say, it's a normal reaction. I've heard some guys like say, and they're like a little bit older, saying the same thing about Sting, and not just women but guys as well.
Absolutely. I think there's that where we all ought to admit that as men that we can appreciate a beautiful man. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Yes. So he's my idol in that sense. I wish I'd looked after myself the way he has.
And the thing is, with being a Geordie, you'd think he'd be like his Newcastle Brown or his Exhibition.
You would, wouldn't you? Yeah, I know.
Must be good genes.
What's going on? You think he'd have his tabs tucked up his little shirt sleeve there? Never wear a jacket. Brilliant. I once went to Newcastle. We're allowed to swear on your thing. I already have. So
it's fine.
Yeah. Just because the thing I love about Newcastle is I went to Newcastle once. I got off the train. I went to a hotel just around the corner, about 10 minutes away. Just walked there. Then I rang a friend, and he said, "Oh, we're down by the docks, down at, on the front, in a bar. Come and join us." I said, "Okay." So I grabbed a jacket and walked out the hotel, and I walked down, and it was bloody freezing. Actually, it was a really cold day, as it often is in Newcastle. And I was walking down the hill, and a car drove by me, and the bloke went past, and then he turned around and he wound down his window. He leant out the window and he shouted, "Fuck off home, you southern bastard!" And it was because I was wearing a jacket.
By the way, it's unbelievable. You go down to Newcastle and you think the place is just covered with, it's like zebras. Everyone's got like a Newcastle strip on. It's even
it's amazing,
girls,
isn't it?
It's unbelievable. I love Newcastle.
Well, it's one of the things that makes it such an attractive town, I think, is the absolute dedication of the people who come from there for the town they come from. They love it. Everybody's very proud to come from that town, and they love the town. And there's the city. There's no, and that's a great thing. I think I think it's and it's not a sort of it's not an aggressive or a non-accepting thing. Yeah. It's just, sorry, but we know we're the best. This is the best place to be. We're the best people, and we're having a great time. You aren't you sorry you're not one of us. That's what it is. And I like that. I like that attitude.
And it's great. Over the years, God, I've been in so many fantastic nights out in Newcastle, especially just being down the road. I'm in Edinburgh, so
easy.
So it's just down the road practically.
Mm,
But but Newcastle is just a fantastic place, really brilliant place.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I tell you what's a really nice, a really great place where I've been as well is Brighton.
Oh, yeah, no, it is great. Yeah. Yeah,
Brighton's
it's lovely. Well, I think often places that have a big student presence is
hmm
nice. They're
hmm
good because, you know, you've got people coming in from outside. It broadens the whole scope of the thing.
yeah,
Yeah. We all get a bit xenophobic, don't we, when all we meet is the same people every day. It's
yeah,
a good thing to broaden our horizons,
hmm
to meet
yeah.
new people.
It's fantastic, And I mean, I love going all over Britain every year. Obviously,
Mm.
since the restrictions and stuff, I used to love. I mean, I used to love going to Benidorm, but
So did I.
yeah.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but I've been going up to places like Skye. I've been going down to London, and like
Lovely.
I mean, I was in a film a couple of years ago. It was a Terence Davis film called Benediction, and I was in
Mm.
that with Peter Capaldi and Geraldine James, and I had to go to London for an actual COVID test when all this was all kind
Yeah.
of started and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I went down, oh god, it was really hot. The weather was scorching. It was like you were in Benidorm. It was really
Mm.
London can get really hot, couldn't it? It can get really
Yes,
really
I
hot.
know. It's weird, isn't it? Just those few degrees, they make a big difference, don't they? And for example, when
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody but we all know Edinburgh because we've all been to Edinburgh to the Edinburgh Festival, really, and
Mhm.
that would be the time you'd expect it to be its warmest.
Yeah.
But I made a mistake of going up there once, thinking, well, it's August, I don't need a coat.
Mhm.
I learned my lesson very quickly. Come 5 o'clock in the evening, you need a coat.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm lucky. I mean, I just stay about 10 minutes from the town centre.
Yeah.
And, I just love, for years, I've kind of taken it for granted, seen the castle
Hmm.
and going up the Royal Mile and stuff. But I absolutely love it. It's just, to me, I just love my city. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But going back, I mean, obviously you've did other things. I mean, you've been on the Bill, EastEnders, and Casualty, and Coronation. I mean,
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
done all
lots
that.
of different soap operas over the years. Lots of different soap operas, but
Yeah, I mean,
never for any. I've not stayed anywhere for a long time.
yeah.
That's yeah.
But what I was going to ask you was, I mean, you've done like a lot of dramatic parts as well as comedy parts. I mean, I take it? I mean, is it like a good little change for you doing something more dramatic?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see any great difference between them. If you can understand what's going to make someone laugh, I think
Mhm.
you probably almost certainly have the skill to understand what's going to make someone cry or be
Mhm.
scared or hate you.
Mhm.
I mean, it's understandable, I think. Strange enough, I read a book years ago written by Humphrey Bogart, uh, and he said that the best villains were always played by the nicest people.
Mhm.
So all the best Hollywood villains
Mhm.
were, in real life, charming people. Wouldn't hurt a
Mhm.
fly, delightful, generous, kind, thoughtful,
Mhm.
funny. And he said it was because he felt that they knew how much it would hurt, which I think is a really good. I've never forgotten that phrase. And
Mhm.
if ever I've had to play someone who's awful or a baddie,
Mhm.
as it were, I never play them as bad.
Mhm.
I just play them as absolutely normal. But the
Mhm.
thing that's awful about people like that is they don't have any empathy for people. So
Mhm.
we all know if you're the sort of person who likes people and likes getting on with people, you know how much it hurts when somebody just cuts you dead. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you're
Oh.
talking to someone, they turn, and
Mhm.
you go, oh, is it me? Was I boring? At a
Mhm.
party when somebody just sees someone else and walks away, you
Mhm.
go, oh my God. So I would never do that. I've been stuck talking to people for hours when I would much rather be talking to a friend who I'd just seen over there, but I can't. I don't want to be rude, as it
Mhm.
were. And yet, people who are those people, they
Mhm.
don't care about being rude. They care about themselves. And so, in fact, I think he's right that if you understand that, if you understand how much it would hurt, you realize that you only need to do a little thing to be nasty to someone. It only needs to be a tiny thing,
Yeah. I remember
you know.
being told, I mean, especially years ago from, I think it was my grandmother. I think it was my grandmother that told me. She
Mm,
says that for someone to be nasty to someone, it takes more an effort to someone being nasty than it is for them to be nice to someone, you know. And I found that interesting.
Yeah. Yes, it's a very good. It's true. All those sayings that they say, you know, that you use many more muscles to frown than you do to smile, and
Yeah.
you know, so yeah,
But
yeah. But I
yeah,
mean, I enjoy doing serious drama stuff as much as I enjoy doing comedy, and I've done more of it recently. It's strange enough, I had a whole sort of spate where I've done a number of absolutely straight, serious roles, and
fantastic.
I've got a couple that haven't come out. You know, yeah, I did a big film last year, which was not, you know, as you know, not easy during lockdown doing those things, or when everybody's having COVID tests all the time. The whole profession has been really difficult over the last few years. But yeah, it's coming out soon, and it was a really enjoyable role. You know, I was Gemma Arterton's dad in it, and actually for the first time, I went back to my roots. I played, because she's, you know, fundamentally a sort of a Cockney girl. I went back to playing her dad, like my uncles, really. So I went complete, you know, I went proper London, yeah, which was very enjoyable. I liked it, you know.
Fantastic. You know what's the name of the film?
It's called oh shit, Free Guard.
Free Guard.
Free GARD. Free Guard. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, everyone.
James Norton is playing the lead in it. He's absolutely brilliant actor.
Fantastic. I'll be keeping an eye out for that as well, because I like to see what everyone does, and you know, and especially people that have been on here. Yeah. I like how
you can see how useless I am at promoting myself. I couldn't even remember the name of the film. I remember all about it. I remember filming it. I remember all the people on it. But the idea of saying, "Oh, I'm in this film," I very rarely do things like that. I don't generally tell people.
Listen, on social media, I'll promote the hell out of it if you want. So it's up to you.
Well, I'll be back in touch. Yeah.
Oh, honestly, it sounds good though. Especially, I mean, Gemma.
It is. It's a really good. I think it's going to be a really good film. Yeah, it's a great story.
Must have been good working with Gemma Arterton. She's a good actress, isn't she? She's a great actress.
She's really lovely person. You know, I mean, but then generally, you know, you'll say this is true because you don't often come across people who are not nice in acting. I don't think those people who are not nice, that whole idea of actors as being sort of spiky or rude or sharp, you know, or self-centered. It's not, generally, it's absolutely not true. They're very generous, very concerned about other people, very giving. You know, I mean, a lot of people I know, they're delightful people, you know. So, I mean, it's a sort of a false impression that you get of the world of acting. The idea you've got a lot of people sort of swanning around calling for, you know, make up, you know, and clapping their hands and saying, wardrobe, where's my shirt? It just doesn't happen. You never do that. You're going to say, I'm terribly sorry, I do apologize, but I don't seem to have my shirt. Like, oh, God, sorry. You know, you'd never do that. It's not in the nature of actors to do that.
You know, it was really funny. I had Robert Gillespie. I know that an actor he's been on loads of stuff over the years.
Everything, yeah.
And he told me it was one, and I think it was in his earlier days. I can't remember. I think he was in a film where he was in something with Richard Burton. And he said,
wow, yeah.
And I think he was a supporting actor in it. And he was telling us, especially during, like, say, when they were having their meal relief, like, so they're having their breaks and stuff. And I think it was lunchtime, and you had on the one table, big table, you had the extras. The other table, just along from it, was the supporting actors. And then further up, you had your main actors. It was like everything was statist in each table. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, one of the supporting actors went up to ask Richard Burton something, or one of the other actors or actresses. And they were like, you know, as if to say, what are you doing here?
that's unusual, actually. I mean, I know that quite often it's difficult with supporting actors because people sometimes they've been kept apart because you know, understandably they want to talk a lot about something, and actually quite often the actor will say, well, you know, I'm sorry, but in my head what I'm doing is I'm going through my lines.
Yeah,
I'm sort of concentrating. So I you know, but I find supporting actors on things I've worked with, you meet some amazing people. You meet some really interesting people. I like talking to the supporting actors.
Yeah.
Yes. And I wouldn't, I would never do that thing of going, this is where we sit and that's where you sit.
Yeah. I found it quite unusual when I got told that. But then, maybe that was just a thing back in the day or something,
Maybe, may well be, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's changed. It's definitely changed. And I think of stories back, Michael Elphick, the actor Michael Elphick, he did a film with Michael Caine, he told me that, and unfortunately he'd been out drinking the night before, rather stupidly. And he thought, that's all right, I'll learn the lines. I'll have plenty of time when I get there. I'll learn the lines properly when I get there. And he hadn't really learned his lines. And he turned up, and right at the beginning of the day, that person said, okay, the director would like to see you and Michael go through the scene. And he turned up, and it was on a pavement with a track running right down the length of the pavement. And he realized that it was going to be a walking scene done in one shot, which is the most difficult scene. You've got to get it right. If they get it wrong, they have to go right back to the beginning again. If you stumble, right back to the beginning again. He said, in about 3 or 4 times he tried to do it and kept forgetting his lines. And just at the point where he realized that, he was on the edge, really, the director was going, yeah, no, Michael, you do know this, don't you? You have learned it, haven't you? And he went, yeah, no, sorry, I don't know, it's a bit early. And he went, yeah, well, can we just see it, please? Can we just see the scene? So he thought, oh, God, I've got to get this right. And they went back to the beginning, and Michael Caine kept walking. And the director said, Michael, where you go? He said, look, it's too bloody early, mate. I am not staying here and doing this shit. I need to have breakfast first. Call me when I've had my breakfast. And he stormed off. And Michael Elphick thought, Jesus Christ, that was lucky. So he went back to his trailer, and he worked on the lines, learnt it. About an hour and a half later, they came back and said, Michael's ready now. Sorry about that. And he went, that's fine. It's right. He said, they went back out, and they stood on the beginning, and Michael Caine turned to him and said, have you learnt it now, son? And he'd done it deliberately. He'd done it deliberately to give him time to learn his lines. And that, to me, I think, shows astonishing generosity.
That's
because
incredible.
he could have said, no, he's not up to it, get rid of him, get someone else. We'll do this scene another day with an actor who can do it, who knows the job. But he said it was a lesson he never forgot. Right at the beginning of his career, being given that break by somebody that powerful. It's a lovely thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is, it would have given him like a kick at the backside.
Yeah.
Not just for that day, but probably for the rest of his career.
Absolutely. He said he changed his attitude to it. He never turned up on set without knowing his lines backwards. And that's really all an actor can do. The only control you have is over knowing the lines and knowing them better than anybody else, really.
That's an incredible story. That's incredible. What a man, eh? Michael Caine, absolute legend.
Yeah,
absolute legend.
Yeah.
Right, Michael. I was going to ask you this question: if you were to go back in time and to start your career, if you could, you probably wouldn't want to, but if you could, what would you change?
Well, that's always a difficult question, isn't it? Because I've had lots of opportunities in my life that I've sort of not taken. I think I probably said early on that I assumed that everything would just carry on, and it sort of has, really, but not, I've not made as much money or become as famous as I think I could have done if I'd concentrated on it. Now, I'm not saying I would change that, because the older I get, the more I realize that being famous is really very unimportant. It's doing the work. But I also think that I might have fallen out of love with it if I'd done too much work. Do you know what I mean? If I'd never stopped, if I had work all the time, I think you can get tired of it. Also, if that had been the situation, I would never have spent the time I have spent in my life with my children growing up, with my wife, in my home, and I have had a really lovely time. And I love my family, and I love spending time with them. So when people used to say, oh, come on, at the end of filming, come on, we're all going to the pub. And Mike, I must talk to you about a project we've got going. I'd go, yeah, can you talk to me about that tomorrow? Because I've got to get home because the kid's going to have a bath. And so I would go home to be with my children and be with my wife. And actually, So I wouldn't change that at all. Even if it meant that I'd got opportunities to be in things, a number of people said, "Oh, we should write together," and I went, "Yeah, yeah." And I thought, but I promised to take the kids to play football. I haven't got the time. And if I'd been dedicated to me, as it were, just only thinking about me and furthering my own career and furthering myself, I think I could have got further. I could have been, you'd now be going, "Bloody hell, I can't believe you're on my podcast," rather than "It's nice to have you on my podcast." But at the same time, it really doesn't matter. I've gone right through the whole thing. I've done nothing else since I decided to be an actor. I've done a bit of, I've written, and I've done a little bit of producing and presenting and things like that. But nearly all of it, nearly everything I've done has been acting. And I was offered a chance to become a producer. I turned it down because they said I wouldn't be able to act, that I would just have to be a producer. And so I'm very pleased with the decisions I've made, really, because actually they brought me to where I am, and it means that I've worked with an enormous number of people over the years, some amazing people. I've done some extraordinary things, been places. I've always had enough money, which again is incredible. Times when it gets a bit tight, and times when I'm really flush. And I think, and they even out, really. So generally, if I fancy going out for dinner, I'd go out for dinner with my wife, and I would go out. If I fancied, going on holiday, I sort of go, yeah, I'll go on holiday. I'd go on holiday. I've had a really, really easy time of it. I'm very aware of the fact that I've been extremely fortunate in what I've done, and that, and I haven't really paid any attention to my profession. I've not pursued work. I've not chased it. I've not done anything in a way, to improve myself, to make myself better. I've just learnt on the job, and I've got away with it. I've absolutely got away with it. I can say that probably half of my professional career, I haven't worked, and the other half I have. And that means that when everybody else is working a 5-day week, I work a 2-day week.
Fantastic.
But I haven't stopped. I just keep going, and I keep working. And those 2 days mean that I probably earn as much money as they do working 5 days. And so I'm very happy with that. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Not many people can go, just go off for a walk in the middle of the week because they're free. Lovely.
And it's like, it's great knowing that you're actually earning and doing something that you enjoy. And even though, so be it now, let's say maybe 2 or 3 days a week, and you could spend the rest of your time with your family or do whatever you
I've never
want.
chosen work. I've very rarely chosen work entirely on the basis of the financial rewards. Otherwise, really seriously, you'd never be an actor. Nobody would ever become an actor if they were only interested in earning a lot of money, because most actors don't. In fact, it's a very poorly paid profession. If you do theatre, but if I get offered a really nice theatre role, I will take it, even if that means that I'm going to be, what is the actor minimum in a theatre at the moment? £420 a week?
Yeah, something like that.
And yet, and that's me. I'm 60, nearly 65. I've got 40 years plus, 45 years of experience. If I was in any other job, I'd be working for £400 an hour, not £400 a week. If I was a solicitor, if I was a barrister now, that's what I'd be getting. I'd be a judge. If I'd worked in a bank, I'd be running the place. So it doesn't reward me for the experience that I bring to it. But I'm perfectly happy to do it, because I like the work.
Do you ever think to yourself, what would have happened if you'd have changed if you maybe went into law or something? And how things
I think I'd probably be dead. I would have had a heart attack by now. I think probably I wouldn't have been able to stay off the booze.
They'd be like that. Where you going? You come to the pub? I say, let's go to the pub. Go on, let's go to the pub.
Yeah, quite. I think so. I don't know. It's difficult to imagine a different life, isn't it, from the one you've had? I think, and also completely pointless imagining a world where everything was better, because who knows if that would be better, being richer or having a bigger house or having expensive cars or knowing more, being more famous. That's an extraordinary thing to want, to be famous. Whenever I talk to kids, occasionally I get asked to go and talk to kids in schools about acting. And, you say to them, who wants to be an actor? And they, oh yeah, me. But why do you want to be an actor? And generally, more and more over the years, the answer for why they want to become an actor is they want to be famous. Yeah, I want to be famous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I say to them, well, that's not what being an actor is about.
Mm-hmm.
Being an actor isn't about famous. If you chase fame, you're going to be very unhappy because there'd always be someone more famous than you. And then the moment that you stop doing something, it fades incredibly quickly. All the famous people I know, all the people who have been famous are no longer as famous as they were. The only person I can think of who that might be true of, who's always been really famous, is Rowan Atkinson. But even still, recently, you think, oh, where's he been recently? What have we seen? Is he as famous as he was? Does he care? I very much doubt it. In fact, I think he probably relishes not being as famous. I know for a while he wouldn't let Mr. Bean be shown in Italy because he had a house there and he wanted to go on holiday and not be recognized. So crazy. Then the film came out and they said, no, it's got to be worldwide. And that ruined it. He had nowhere to go. He couldn't go anywhere where people didn't go, oh, Mr. Bean, Mr. Bean.
Oh, they're tough to immigrate to Antarctica or somewhere,
Quite. Well, what you do is you buy a big house in the country and you stay there and you keep your head down. Which is, who wants that? Who wants to do that? I can go anywhere I like. I can walk into places and sometimes people say to me, hello, mate, you were in that, aren't you? And I go, yeah. I say, not at the moment. I'm really here. I'm not on the telly at the moment. This is me live, And they go, oh, yeah, great. Oh, nice to meet you. And that's it. What a nice life. How lovely. In fact, people generally are very nice to me because they sort of recognize me. Yeah. Do you know that thing where they go, hello? You go, hello. They go, they don't really know why they're being friendly or why they're being nice, and they don't know why they recognize you, but they sort of do. And it means that people are generally very nice to me. So I've got absolutely the best of both worlds.
Fantastic. I mean, you do have one of the most recognizable faces, I reckon, on British television.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's mental.
Isn't that weird?
Absolutely
I know.
Mental.
There isn't a day goes by where somebody doesn't shout groovy to me. And that's 30, 35, 36 years ago. And I go, how? How can you see this and think that? This little skinny boy, about 35 years old, with a full head of hair. And suddenly they see me and they go, yeah, that's who it is. Groovy. What?
You know what's really funny? It's like the girl who was the rep, Carmen, she was on... I saw her on. She was on that thing with Noel Clark and.
Oh yeah, no, she's still she's still acting all over the place, really.
And she doesn't.
So Gina Bellman, her name is. She was yeah.
And she's a very
lovely actress.
She hasn't looked like she's aged much either.
No, she's beautiful, isn't she?
Unbelievable.
She is still beautiful. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I might be talking to her soon for my podcast. I hope. She said she'd do it, so that would be nice.
Fantastic.
We can both reminisce about it.
Brilliant. Right, lastly, Michael, right, I'm going to ask you, have you got any tips here for any young actors that maybe like apply their trade in the industry?
Well, I don't know. No, I think I don't really know how you'd get into it now. And I would say, unless you really love it, if you really can't do anything else, then do it. Mm-hmm. But if you think, I just quite fancy it, or if you think, yeah, I quite like the idea of being famous, don't do it. Mm-hmm. Don't do it because it's you'll never choose a job where there's so much rejection. Mm-hmm. I mean, on a daily basis, people say to me, no, don't want you. No, you're not right for this. You're not the man we want. No, that wasn't good enough. All the time that happens to you. So you've got to have, well, either a very thick hide or a hell of an ego to keep going. You've got to just keep faith in the fact that, yes, I know I will be all right. I can do it. It just wasn't me this time. But I go for jobs, lots of jobs. And I know young actors who go for jobs, they're auditioning for jobs almost every day. Mm-hmm. And they may do that for months. Mm-hmm. And every time people say, nope, not you. Mm-hmm. And they keep going. And they keep going. So unless you absolutely love the idea of it and can't think of doing anything else, because it's not as rewarding as you think it's going to be. It's really hard work. There's lots of very, very hard work involved in being an actor. Long hours. It's very antisocial. the hours that you're going to work, particularly in theatre. And you become this strange being. There is a possibility, of course, that you will suddenly do something where everybody knows who you are, and the rewards for that are quite good. Not always massive, not always what you'd think they are. Not everybody becomes a millionaire. Some of them they have a nice period where they're earning a good living, making money and being invited to parties and things. But then, a few years after that, people have forgotten they did that role, and they've got to prove themselves all over again. They've got to reinvent themselves. Particularly for women, it's very difficult. As you get older, there are fewer and fewer roles for women. It's a tough job to take on as a woman, and it's not right. The whole thing of it was always very difficult for ethnic minorities as well, because it was very biased towards people like me. That is changing. Finally, that is changing, and you'll see all over the place that's being rectified. And it's taken a long time, but it is happening, and that's a good thing. But not necessarily for women. It's not quite become as equal opportunities as it ought to be. So, yeah, I would say, and particularly there are a lot of young women who sort of fancy the idea of going into being an actress, and it's a very tough thing to take on. And I would say you'll get an enormous amount of pleasure. And in fact, there's no reason why you can't do it all the time as an amateur. If you just like the idea of going on stage and doing shows and things, because being an actor, one of the things you have to do is all the other stuff. You have to keep auditioning for stuff. You have to keep traveling around trying to prove yourself to people. And you have to do your own accounts. You have to, all those sort of things. There's all sorts of stuff that you've got to do as an actor that you don't really bargain for when you first take it on. So, if you just like getting on stage and performing, and you can find some really good amateur groups in your area, or even nationally, there are all sorts of things you can join. Then do it. Do that. Certainly do that to find out if that's what you really love. Because if you do that and you think after a few years of having done that, you go, I just can't think of doing anything else. Then do it. Then have a go. But don't go into it with rose-tinted spectacles. It's a strange profession, and you've got to really want to do it to keep going.
And I feel
I would say that. Never chase fame. Never chase fame. Always chase the work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Choose it for the passion. Choose it for the enjoyment of acting, like whether on stage or in film. I feel nowadays there's a lot of there's more and more and more people who want to be an actor as well. So it's a big, massive.
Yeah.
It's so many.
Yeah. And the pay has gone down and down and down. If you work there was a time if you did a couple of television series in a year, it would earn you the living to keep going, But now, no, I mean, the money that you can earn working for the BBC doing stuff, the money is sort of the same. I got paid £500 to do a 1 week's work on Only Fools and Horses. That's what I got paid. But it's the contract I had meant that every time it gets shown, I get paid that £500 again. And in fact, it's index linked. So now that £500 is about £2,500 if it gets shown, which is great. And I get all the repeats for video sales, all those things. Now they'll give you a buyout. All those things will be bought out. You won't earn forever. You won't earn for work that you've done for the rest of your life, which I still do. I still get money from all sorts of things I've done. So I've built up a catalogue of work, as it were. It's getting tougher. It's getting more and more hard. And imagine over the last few years, I really feel for some of the young actors that I know and that I've worked with who were just going. They were going and they were on a trajectory and things were going right, and they knew what they were doing and people knew who they were and they were working, but they were nearly always working in the theatre, going from theatre job to theatre job to theatre job. And suddenly we've had 2 years, no theatre, gone. A job that you think, I'd fancy being an actor. There are no jobs for actors. They stopped. They absolutely stopped. Unless you're really famous so they can afford to pay for you to have a COVID test every day and pay for you to be driven in your own car and to stay outside and everything to be done to make sure that you're in it. It's difficult.
Really crazy, but, well, I'll tell you what, we've more or less covered everything, Michael.
Oh,
And
right, great.
and you know what? It's just
Well, I
absolutely,
hope it was entertaining, but I'm not sure it was. But it was, it's just me talking.
Michael. Honestly, it was very entertaining. Some of your stories have been absolutely fantastic. Honestly, they've been brilliant, and it's just great to have you on here because it's just hearing some of the stuff. I mean, so you've been on countless things, and you've tell me some of these stories, especially about Sting, and absolutely fantastic, mate.
Yeah.
Honestly,
And we didn't even get to talk about Benidorm.
I know. I'm sure we will at one
Hey,
point.
I'll have to come back on another time and tell you all the stories about us singing karaoke in Benidorm. What nights we had.
Listen, we'll get a special on that one day because I mean I love Benidorm. I know the place like the back of my
Yeah.
hand. I really do. But listen, Michael, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Been an absolute pleasure. You're such a lovely guy as well, and it's been fantastic.
Thanks, mate. Nice to talk to you. I hope we get a chance to work together sometime.
Absolutely. Just give me a shout. You know what to do. Just even if it's like once we go to Benidorm, just give me a shout if you're there, and we'll have a few pina coladas together or something.
Lovely. Yeah.
Okay, Michael. Have a fantastic weekend, mate. Okay.
Cheers. All the best.
And all the best to you too, my friend. Okay.